안녕하세요. 말레이시아 우대표입니다. 오늘은 몽키아라 중심에 위치한 미국식 국제학교 MKIS의 오픈데이에 다녀왔습니다. MKIS는 몽키아라에 거주하는 학부모님들이라면 한 번씩 관심을 가져보셨을 학교인데요. 직접 방문해보니 뛰어난 위치뿐만 아니라 캠퍼스 시설과 수업 분위기, 그리고 오픈데이를 진행하는 방식에서도 MKIS만의 색깔을 분명히 느낄 수가 있었습니다. 오늘 영상에서는 제가 오픈데이에 직접 참석해보고 느낀 MKIS의 모습을 자세히 소개해드릴 예정인데요. 이날은 학생들이 실제로 수업을 하고 있었기 때문에 교실과 학교 내부를 자유롭게 촬영할 수는 없었는데요. 학생들의 안전과 개인정보 보호를 위한 학교 방침인 만큼 직접 촬영하지 못한 캠퍼스 내부와 수업 장면은 MKIS에서 공식적으로 공개한 영상으로 대신 보여드리겠습니다. 공식 영상 속 학교 시설과 수업 모습을 보시면 제가 현장에서 느꼈던 MKIS의 분위기를 좀 더 구체적으로 확인하실 수 있을 것 같습니다. 오늘은 두 분의 초등부 교장 선생님이 학교를 설명하고 학부모들의 질문을 받는 장면을 학교 측으로부터 사전에 촬영 허가를 받은 뒤에 직접 촬영했습니다. 두 교장 선생님들의 설명과 Q&A 장면은 후반부에 첨부했으니까 끝까지 한번 확인해 주시기 바랍니다. MKIS 오픈데이는 사전에 제한된 인원만 신청할 수 있도록 소수의 슬롯으로 운영이 되었습니다. 제가 참석한 오전 9시 세션에도 한 5가족 정도만 참여를 했었는데요. 많은 인원이 한꺼번에 설명을 듣고 캠퍼스를 둘러보던 다른 학교의 오픈데이와는 분위기가 확실히 달랐습니다. 소규모로 진행된 만큼 처음부터 교장 선생님들과 가까이 마주 앉아서 학교에 관한 설명을 들을 수 있었고요. 단순히 준비된 학교 소개를 듣는 것으로 끝나는 것이 아니라 학부모들이 궁금한 내용을 직접 질문하고 교장 선생님들의 답변을 들을 수 있는 Q&A 시간도 마련됐었거든요. 일반적인 학교 설명회보다는 교장 선생님들과 직접 상담하는 자리에 가까웠습니다. 참가한 가족 한 명 한 명에게 집중한다는 느낌도 받을 수 있었고 전체적인 분위기도 매우 차분하면서 편안했습니다. 선생님과 학생 그리고 학부모와의 자연스러운 소통을 중요하게 생각하는 MKIS의 학교 분위기가 오픈데이 운영 방식에도 그대로 반영되어 있다는 생각이 들었습니다. MKIS 초등부는 학생의 연령과 학년에 따라 두 분의 교장 선생님이 담당하고 있었습니다. 유치부부터 한 2학년까지는 제니퍼 교장 선생님이 담당하시고 3학년부터 5학년까지는 드웨인 교장 선생님이 담당하고 계십니다. 이번 오픈데이에서는 두 분이 함께 MKIS 초등부의 교육 과정과 학교 생활에 대해서 직접 설명해 주셨고요. 설명이 끝난 뒤에는 참가한 학부모들의 질문을 받고 답변하는 Q&A 시간도 이어졌는데요. 오전 9시 세션에 참석한 가족이 한 5가족이었는데 그 중에 또 몇 가족은 하이스쿨 쪽으로 갔었기 때문에 일반적인 학교 설명보다는 훨씬 더 가까운 거리에서 두 교장 선생님과 대화할 수 있었습니다. 가족들이 궁금했던 내용을 구체적으로 질문하고 학교를 가장 잘 알고 있는 교장 선생님으로부터 직접 답변을 들을 수 있다는 점이 너무 좋았고요. 두 분이 함께 학년별 교육과정과 분위기를 설명해 주셔서 아이가 입학한 이후에도 어떤 과정을 거쳐서 성장하게 되는지도 아주 체계적으로 이해할 수 있었습니다. MKIS를 직접 둘러보면서 느낀 학교의 장점을 한번 얘기해 볼게요. 아무래도 MKIS의 가장 큰 장점 중에 하나는 역시 위치입니다. 학교가 몽키아라 한가운데 자리를 잡고 있는데요. 저희 사무실이 있는 163몰에서도 걸어서 5분 정도면 도착할 수 있을 정도로 몽키아라의 핵심 위치에 있습니다. 학교 측 설명에 따르면 한 70% 이상의 학생이 근처에 거주하면서 걸어서 통학을 하고 있다고 합니다. 쿠알라룸푸르에서는 등하교 시간의 교통체증이 확실히 학생과 학부모의 일상에 상당히 영향을 줄 수 있습니다. 그런 점에서 아이들이 걸어서 통학할 수 있다는 것은 학생과 학부모에게 매우 큰 장점이죠. 우리나라로 따지면 초품화 같은 거라고 생각하셔도 됩니다. 특히 몽키아라에 거주하고 있거나 이 지역으로 이주할 계획이 있으신 가정이라면 MKIS의 접근성은 사실 다른 학교와 비교하기 어려울 정도로 뛰어나다고 볼 수 있습니다. MKIS가 미국식 국제학교 가운데 높은 평가를 받는 이유에는 교육과정뿐만 아니라 이런 입지적인 장점도 분명히 포함되어 있을 것 같습니다. 학교를 밖에서 처음 봤을 때는 사실 캠퍼스가 조금 작다고 생각을 했었어요. 그 몽키아라 중심에 아주 비싼 부지에 자리 잡고 있다 보니까 시설이나 활동 공간이 좀 제한적이지 않을까? 이런 생각도 좀 들었었는데요. 실제로 안에 들어가 캠퍼스를 둘러보니까 그렇게 생각했던 것과는 아주 다른 인상을 받았습니다. 캠퍼스 내부에는 충분한 크기의 축구장도 있었고 테니스장, 수영장도 갖추고 있었습니다. 여기에 다양한 공연과 행사를 진행할 수 있는 대극장도 있었고 학생들이 직접 체험하고 있는 클라이밍 그 벽까지 한번 보는 기회가 있었어요. 그래서 학생들의 학업뿐만 아니라 스포츠, 공연, 예술 등 다양한 교내 활동을 충분하게 지원할 수 있는 시설이 잘 갖추어져 있었습니다. 외부에서 그냥 정문만 보는 것보다 캠퍼스가 훨씬 넓었고 한정된 공간도 상당히 잘 효율적으로 활용하고 있다는 인상을 받았습니다. 또 한국으로 비교하면 청담동에 있는 초등학교나 청담동에 있는 영동고등학교처럼 비싼 도심부지에 자리 잡은 아주 좋은 사립학교가 떠오르는 모습이었습니다. 도심 한가운데 위치하면서도 학생들에게 필요한 교육과 체육시설을 충실하게 갖춘 작아 보이지만 결코 작지 않은 아주 알찬 캠퍼스였습니다. 이번 방문에서는 실제 수업이 진행되는 모습도 직접 볼 수가 있었는데요. 가장 인상적이었던 부분이 선생님들과 학생들 사이에 아주 편안하고 자연스러운 분위기였습니다. 선생님이 앞에서 일방적으로 설명하고 학생이 듣는 그런 수업보다는 선생님과 학생들이 가까이서 대화하고 함께 편안하게 참여하는 모습들이 많이 보였거든요. 실제로 학생들도 선생님들을 어렵게 대하기보다는 아주 편하게 질문하고 자신의 의견을 표출하는 모습들을 볼 수 있었습니다. 전체적인 분위기는 아주 자유롭고 편안했지만 또 수업은 아주 집중력 있게 진행이 되고 있었어요. 선생님과 학생들이 자연스럽게 잘 어우러지는 학습 환경이 상당히 좋아 보였고 미국식 교육의 장점으로 이야기되는 자율성과 소통 중심의 분위기도 직접 확인할 수 있었습니다. 시설이나 위치도 물론 중요하지만 학생들이 매일 생활하게 될 학교의 분위기는 정말 직접 방문해야만 알 수 있는 부분인데요. MKIS는 학교에 들어갔을 때 느껴지는 분위기 자체가 굉장히 편안했고 선생님과 학생들의 관계에서도 아주 긍정적인 에너지를 느낄 수 있었습니다. 오늘 MKIS를 직접 둘러본 전체적인 인상을 한마디로 정리하면 몽키아라 중심에 아주 잘 자리 잡은 미국식 사립학교라는 인상을 받았습니다. 오늘 MKIS의 오픈데이는 단순히 시설을 보여주는 오픈데이가 아니라 정말 학교의 교육 분위기와 교육 철학을 직접 경험할 수 있는 아주 좋은 행사였다고 생각을 합니다. MKIS가 왜 몽키아라를 대표하는 미국식 국제학교로 평가받는지 직접 확인할 수 있었던 시간이었고 이제부터는 유치부부터 2학년까지 담당하는 제니퍼 교장 선생님하고 3학년부터 5학년까지 초등부를 담당하시는 드웨인 교장 선생님의 학교 설명 그리고 Q&A 장면을 보여드리도록 하겠습니다. MKIS의 교육 방향과 실제 학교에 대해 두 분이 직접 자세히 설명해 주신 만큼 MKIS 입학을 고려하고 계신 학부모님들께 아주 도움이 될 영상이라고 생각을 합니다. MKIS에 관심이 있으신 분들은 두 교장 선생님의 설명과 Q&A 내용을 끝까지 자세하게 확인해 보시기 바랍니다. MKIS에 대한 궁금한 점이 있으시면 댓글로 남겨주시거나 저희 홈페이지를 통해서 커넥트인 아시아로 연락 주시기 바랍니다. 오늘 영상이 도움되셨다면 좋아요와 구독도 부탁드리고 다음 영상에서도 다른 좋은 국제학교 오픈데이에 참가해서 학교의 설명을 저희의 입이 아닌 교장 선생님과 실제 학교를 대표하시는 분들의 설명으로 잘 이해하실 수 있게 직접 담아오도록 하겠습니다.
Right now in the international circuit. There's three. You've got the American school, then you've got Cambridge British curriculum, and then you have IB curriculum. And so I guess the way it goes is Cambridge is more traditional, teacher-centered. There's a lot of information for you to learn. They're trying to be more progressive, but they're still a very knowledge-based system where you're just learning a lot of facts. However, then you have the American system, which is kind of in between, and then you have the IB system, which is a little more progressive, and it's more student-centered. We put the student at the center of it. Maybe you can talk about that.
So this is, in the previous slide, you saw the teacher at the front of the class kind of lecturing, students taking notes. and there's nothing wrong with that. But the way that the PYP works is, so these students have all prepared questions. So these are fourth grade students, and they're learning about fitness. So they all have questions that they're interested in, and then we brought in a panel of experts. So there's different experts from around the school, and we also brought people in from the community, and the students prepared questions to ask them based on their interests.
So I believe this is a biology teacher, right?
Yeah. PE,
PE specialist?
swim coach,
Swim
and then
coach.
in the other picture there, we did bring in a doctor from KL just to ask questions. So before the students have a question that they want to know, they think of all the questions they want to ask the experts, so it really works on their thinking skills, their questioning skills, the interviewing adults. What does an interview look like? What is a good question? If I need to know more information, what can I do? And it also works on note taking. So instead of like copying notes from the board, they're taught strategies on how to take notes, and it's all guided. So all of these students had like either a different part of the body they were interested in or a different health issue. So it really starts from the questions that they have, and then so they were prepared to answer any of those questions. So they don't necessarily follow a textbook. They don't come with slides. It's really guided by the student.
And then I guess the big part of that is, as the world grows, you know, with the internet, there's much more information. So memorizing a bunch of different facts, information keeps growing every day, especially with AI, thinking about, just look at the universe, you know, Pluto used to be a planet, now it's not a planet. I think it's a satellite now. You don't really, memorization's not the best way to take in a lot of information because it's always changing. So the idea is to teach the kids to be ready for the next generation. So for example, before it was the internet, now it's AI. And so how do we keep those kids ready? And so it's really about not knowledge, it's about strategies. So communication, self-management. Can I be on time for the meeting? Can I put my clothes on by myself, right? Communication, self-management.
And also like communication skills, how to communicate in real time. So instead of just typing in questions and getting the answer right away, they might have to ask different questions, ask someone else, find a different resource. So they might not get the answer right away, which a lot of them are used to by typing in and Googling. And we still do use technology, but we also encourage them to seek other sources as well. And this starts with the 3-year-olds. So it doesn't look like this with the 3-year-olds, but the 3-year-olds are still asking questions. Like we might present a topic to them and they're still asking questions. So we really work on questioning from very, very young. And even with our EAL learners, we're giving them prompts and we're teaching them how to ask questions. What's a good question? What are different ways I can ask a question? And students and our students are naturally, they ask questions. As parents, you probably answer hundreds of questions a day. So it's something that students naturally do. And so we bring that into the classroom and they really guide the learning.
And so this is a good example of what Jen was talking about with the early years. Jen's the early years specialist, so I can look.
Yeah, so in here, this is like the play-based learning that you'll see in the early years. So like, for example, we give them materials, like, so this is a provocation, and these are called loose parts. So they look a little different from like the traditional toys with faces, with like cars that move. We do have those toys down there, but in here, we give them things and see what they do. So there's paint, or I think there's glue, like different leaves, different pieces of paper, and then we see what they do. And the teacher will be there talking to them. Oh, you're gluing. Where is the paper? So that's how we really focus on developing language. And in here, this is like one of our imaginary playstations. So they're negotiating with each other on who's doing what. So I'm going to be the cook. You're going to be my customer. They're negotiating. They're really working on the imaginative play. They're also developing fine motor skills in both situations. So instead of having like a center, you're going to go here, you're going to play house, this is what you're going to do, the students get to choose, and then the teacher's there to sort of guide, ask questions, and really let them choose the learning.
And so this will connect a little bit into what we're going to talk about next is specifically in a unit, we may be studying about jobs. And traditionally you might go to a school and you're like, here's a flashcard, cook, mechanic. But that way doesn't really help kids connect with it. So in this case, they have multiple kids from different languages in there, and they start developing their own language. So for example, the cook would be talking about maybe this is soup, and then the other student might say, this is something else. And so they learn about the language naturally, but also then they start thinking, okay, when you do this creative play, they might make, okay, what's missing? We need a menu. So then they start writing, and it's not like letters, but they're going to go, okay, this is what a menu looks like. They're drawing lines. So it's really about them developing that concept of understanding. And through this play, they start learning. And I know, so I'm from Canada, and I guess I'm a bit older, so it was traditional education where I was told to memorize things. And before this, I was in France and then Japan before that. It was the same thing in the national system. There's a lot of memorization. So as a parent, when I see this, I'm like, it's play. Like, aren't they learning? And then the big joke is I go in the class now and I'm talking to them and I'm saying, you can't play in here, we've only learning. But the kids are, no, we are learning. So that's a bit of a mindset change for us.
All right, and so this is how we sort of like to look at the TYP. So in traditional school, there's a lot of different ingredients. So there's math, science, literature, art, history, music. And so we still have all of those ingredients, but we mix them all together. And it comes out like a cake. So sometimes you can't see the individual ingredients. So for example, if students are learning about plants, they're learning science, they need to know what plants need to grow. So they're bringing in those factors. We bring in math, which is measuring, reading and writing, what would make your plant grow better. So then they'll go get a book about plants, read the book, and then try that on their plant. They're also communicating what they learn, so we'll have them maybe teach younger students how to grow a plant. They're also encouraged to experiment. So in grade 2, that was a grade 2 unit on plants. Some of them tried different places around the school. Some of them tried watering them with different things. So we really let them make choices on how they want to learn and then come to conclusions. So, my plant didn't have enough sunlight. I wonder why it didn't grow. Or the plant that was in this much sun grew so much taller. Why did that happen? So we let them figure that out and then kind of research the why behind it.
And I guess the big part is we do have standards. So parents are like, I remember one parent, well, my son doesn't know the name of this volcano. I'm like, well, yeah, he probably doesn't know the name of that volcano because in the class we studied about how volcanoes work. We were doing something on tectonic plates. And so he was like, well, why did we learn about this? I'm like, well, because here's the standards we do. We do these big things called concepts. So you're not going to memorize all of the different cities in Japan or Taiwan or wherever you're from. You're going to memorize the bigger parts. And maybe if I'm from Taiwan, we try and empower the kids. That might be the project they want to do. They can learn that. But we look at the bigger concept and try to move it in that way. So for example, tectonic plates. If we look at volcanoes, how they work. Weather. So we're looking at big systems, and then once we teach them about the big systems, the kids start doing their own research. So what they've shown is the human brain works much better when you can do this all together. So for example, when you were going back to this one here, the kids are studying about math because they're doing surveys. They're studying about how to write questions. They're studying about how to make a book, a how-to book later on. So for example, with all of this information, the final project is how do we present? And different kids like to present. So for example, I tend to talk with my hands. So when I present usually in a presentation or a video. But then other people might present in text. If you're artistic, you could draw some pictures and make a comic book. So these are all empowering the kids that it's really exciting and interesting for them.
Okay, and then this is what we call an inquiry cycle. So there are many different versions of this, but this is loosely what our teachers follow. So they start off by like engaging the student in a unit. So they always have something at the beginning of the unit to really start to spark their interest. Then they kind of move into a focus. So what does the student want to focus on in this unit? So if we're learning about role models, for example, what specific role model would they like to focus on? Or what is a role model? So we even start that in the beginning. Then they start to investigate. So that can be asking questions, reading books, finding role models and questioning the role model. Then they organize the information. So they have a ton of information from a ton of different sources. They organize it in a way that they can share it for themselves and in a way that they can share it with other people. Then they sort of come up with a generalization that they want to share, so their own conclusion from all the information, and then they transfer that. So they might share it out with the community. We have like a role models fair here, so the students dressed up like their role model, explained from the perspective of the role model why they are a role model. So they follow this cycle in order to get to that point.
And I guess the biggest one is the transfer. So the idea is what you've learned in class and how does that change you every day? So if I've learned about water and resources, maybe I go home and I tell my mom and dad, hey, you know what? We need to think about recycling our garbage. We need to start thinking about lights on. Maybe I've studied about using screen time and how it's bad for my brain. And I know we all have kids here, so that's a fight a lot of parents have. I had one child that came in and said, you know what? I'm going to tell my parents no TV on weeknights. Yeah, that probably didn't go down so well, but they did it for a week, and that was action. So that's the transfer from learning what's going on in the classroom into the real life. So me, I'm a big believer in this way of education. I wish I would have went to a school like this differently. And I'm very happy that my kids go to the school because I can see the changes. Okay. So do we have any questions and answers? We can answer some questions for you about the school. Any question is okay.
Are you sure?
Actually, how many students at the grade 3 and 4? How many students from that?
So good question. So what we do is we have, if a class gets to a certain size, we have a cohort. So right now in grade 3, we have 3 cohorts or 3 classes, or forms you call it. So in each class, they're sitting around 16 to 18 right now. In grade 4, they have 4 cohorts, and it's around the same size. So the classes are nice and manageable. Basically, the magic number is kind of between, for me anyway, is 18 to 24, because when you have a class that's too small, so for example, say you have 10 kids, it's very good if you're doing a teacher-centered education, but because we do collaboration, you want kids to be able to mingle with other kids. And the other big part is conflict. Conflict's healthy. You know, parents are like, yeah, I know, it's surprising, right? But if we don't learn how to negotiate problems when we're young, later on in life, it's very difficult. So having a bit of a larger class lets you connect with different people. And say, Jen and I are friends, but we have a bit of a falling out. I have some other friends I can go to, but if it's only a small class of 10 kids, you're very connected to those 10 kids.
Actually, also I heard a lot of very good strength for this school about the EAL program, which is we all concerned about the English because we just moved to here, and actually we are from Korea, so my kids are not fluent with the English. So what do you think that your school is strength for the how can manage them to learn the English at the first time?
Yeah, so I think we definitely have 2 different levels of EAL. So we have the intensive program. So the students, and it's all based on a test. So if they come, they initially take the test. If during that process they decide they need to be tested for EAL, based on the score of the EAL test, they're either intensive students. So those students come out of the classroom during literacy and work in a very small group with the EAL teacher. And they also do not attend additional language classes. Then once they graduate, or they can even start as a support student, the support students get push-in support. So our EAL teachers go into the classrooms and support them with the classroom content. And it's also part of the planning process for our teachers because almost all of our students are EAL in some way. So when we're planning, we're very intentional about teaching vocabulary, teaching like at the beginning of the unit, all types of vocabulary, having walls in the classroom to show different types of vocabulary. So that's really a big part of the teaching for all students because all students are really EAL.
And kind of going on to that,
Yeah.
we say there's 3 teachers in the classroom. First teacher is the student, second teacher is the teacher, and the third teacher is the classroom. So you have all of that rich text like Jen was talking about, was you have the vocabulary. If I forget, I'm like, so it's giving you that research. I think the school's done a very good job because they have so many different levels of EAL because you don't want to just keep pulling the kids out because kids don't learn that way naturally. They need to have a foundation, and then once they have the foundation, then start talking with their peers. And going back to that play-based approach, same thing. They learn new vocabulary on the football field, sitting on the bench and having a conversation.
Is this play-based approach all the way through till, or is it just the primary, elementary years?
So what happens is, the research now, so I'm research basis, there needs to be play throughout, even at high school. And play looks different, but the main part where it's play is early childhood. And then when you get the grade 1 and grade 2, we start bringing in more skills. It's more closer to traditional education, where you start reading. Reading would be, in kindergarten, you're starting with the phonics and understanding sight words. Then when you get the grade 1, you're starting to, still doing reading.
So mostly there's an objective in learning, but you just use the play-based
Yes,
approach to get them assimilated into that whatever objective we have today.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because there's various approaches to progressive education, and I guess the PYP is really nice because it doesn't go all the way over here where, hey, we're just gonna hang out in the woods. We have a curriculum. We're like, okay, these are objectives. By the end of grade 4, these are the skills that your child should have. And if they don't, that's okay too. But we're gonna talk about how we can get them up to speed and support them.
And do you test the skills that they acquire? We come from a very, in Taiwan, it's the curriculum, it's very academic, teacher-centered. They have a lot of tests, a lot of ways they measure if they acquire the skills or not. So I like to understand, how are there a lot of intensive tests here, or how do you measure if they're there? If they acquired the skills that you're trying to build up for them?
So when you go back to that inquiry cycle, well, there's multiple ways. We do have traditional tests. So we have one coming up in September. It's done by it's a software called MAP. It's called Growth.
Oh, MAP.
So that's to collect data, but we then take that data, and then Jen, you can talk about the loops.
So what we're doing this year is, so we started the year by assessing all students' reading and math levels, but we use that as a tool to tailor our instruction. So right now, starting next week, we're meeting with all the teachers. So we're looking at all of the first grade data and seeing what the needs are. And then we're creating small groups based on that to really target in on that area. Or if we notice a trend across the grade level, then we'll tailor our instruction for all students in order to get those skills.
Awesome.
So it's really differentiation is the buzzword. So we're really working on the differentiating, looking at trends across. They do take tests, but it's not sometimes too, it's not like today's a test, it's really stress-free when they do it. And then sometimes it's like a checklist. And so a lot of times, even throughout the inquiry process, the teacher is checking in and really checking in the moment, tailoring the teaching to that so that they get the skill. Yeah.
But I
So
guess
it's not, we're not super test heavy by any means, but I think more in the upper grades we do.
and so we have a planned transition. So you go to the PYP, then you go to the MYP, so PYP is called transdisciplinary, many subjects together. When you go to the middle school, high school, you're going deeper and deeper. And we do set the kids up because, I don't want to maybe say unfortunately, I'm not a big test advocate. I like project-based. There's a lot of research on them, but the world has tests. University has tests. We need to have kids ready for that. So we do prepare them. So when we transition from PYP to middle school and then to the DP where it's way more rigorous, at the end of it, the tests are done by this third party and we don't do the marking of that. That's done by another party. But those scores are very good because then that helps them access a university. A lot of universities around the world now will basically just take that score to get them in.
And now, sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's okay.
So besides the classroom and stuff, I see that you do have a lot of after school activities. It's a very well-rounded program, not just based on project-based or classroom learning.
Yeah.
Because for applying for university nowadays, it's not just academics. You know, there's a lot of things you have to do to get into a school that you really want to go into.
Yeah.
And I had that discussion with my daughter yesterday because they have a list, I think it's tomorrow, they have all of the different events that are going on.
Today.
Is it today? Okay,
Yeah.
So my daughter's like, well, should I join that one? I'm like, well, you've got to think about university. So there's like the Green Club, there's the United Nations, there's arts. How are you going to make your application look attractive? But we have a really great counselor.
That supports.
Oh yeah.
And
that
even
whole term.
starting in pre-K3, there's after-school activities.
Yeah.
And then starting in second grade, there's after-school activities and sports. So we have quite a good sports program as well that's quite inclusive. So students can sign up for a sport, an after-school activity. There's a lot of choices. Yeah.
Actually, I have one more question. Related of the question that you just asked about I know when you go to jump to the middle and high school, I'm not really exactly the understanding, but the academic level is kind of jumped up. You know, it's not the same as the lower grades, right? After the middle and the high school period. So actually for that grade might be grade 5, 6 years are very important to a bridge a period to go to the middle school, right? So do you have any kind of explanation for that period, grade 5, 6, might be 7? How can you guys prepare to jump up the academic level, and how can the students can easily to landing to the other levels in that period?
So I wouldn't really say that the academics jump so much. It's really the way you're taught. So they go from having a homeroom teacher to having middle school, you have to go to the different classes. So there's those self-management, a lot of things you have to do on your own. And so we have a transition program, and we were just talking about this yesterday. So for grade 5, having them shadow a grade 6 teacher, a teacher or student, having the grade 6 students make videos to talk about the big aha moments they had, just working with them academically. We also have something called an advisory program where it's a 1-to-6 ratio. So they join with an advisor teacher and they get tutoring. It's almost off the British system where they have small groups and they talk about those things and they get that individual support. And then from that point, the advisor would say, okay, you know what? Let's get you some support in math if you're struggling there. So the plan works fairly well. There are big jumps, but every year we're trying to get better and better at it.
I have a question that there are not many IB schools in Kuala Lumpur, and most students are really studying in the British school.
Yeah.
But when they transfer to your school, the IB school, like grade 5 or grade 6, are they students experience any of the difficulties to join to your school?
A little bit, because it goes from, I'll tell you about my daughter because this is a good example. So my daughter, we moved her over in grade 6. She was in the Japanese system, which is very similar to the British system. She had a hard time asking questions and saying, it's okay to put my hand up and ask a question. But very quickly they adapt. I guess your biggest problem is later on if you want to go back to the British system, because then they've had this interesting kind of education, and going back to a teacher-centered approach is quite challenging.
Actually, for the lower grade student, when they coming here as a fresh, like a new student, it's kind of hard to making friends or adapting this new atmosphere. So
Our students are really kind. So that's the thing is that we have a lot of new students because just the nature of student families coming being on 3-year contracts. So they're very used to having new students come. And so they're really good. And we have a counselor that's really good. Like we had a new student this morning, and she was having a hard time. So the counselor brought her in. It was her very first day. She brought in some other students. It was a Japanese students. They played a game. Now she has a friend. So we're really aware of how kids adapt, and we're also, it happens a lot. Like kids, we have a rolling admission. So students can start, I think every day this week we've had a new student in some grade level. So we're very used to that. And then we have a buddy system too. So we try to match the student with a buddy, either of the same culture, the same age, the same interests, if we know that. So the transition is usually quite easy. But if we do notice difficulties, we have the supports in place.
And connected to that, we also have a very strong parent association, and they have country reps. I just moved here. My son, how many weeks have I been here now? Is it 3 weeks now? 3 weeks? At school?
Yeah.
So my son came, and my daughter came, and we were worried. Like my son, he makes friends very easily. My daughter, we were a bit worried because she was the only new student in grade 10, but very quickly she found a friendship group. My son is in grade 5, very quickly found a friendship group. Yesterday, my wife went out with some people that she met from the school and was able to talk about the local food, because right now we want to buy a water filter. I'm like, I don't know anything about water filters. What do we need in this country? And then there's durian. Is it durian? Durian. So they went out to have durian yesterday, and I'm like, how was it? But they kind of took her under the wing, and same thing with the kids here. It's been very supportive, especially too on this road, like around here. A lot of kids do a lot of play dates here because it's close to the school afterwards, so it's a nice close-knit community. But also we have some kids that come out from other parts of Kuala Lumpur. But once again, they do play dates around here, then their parents come and pick them up later.
So what are the nationalities? It's very diverse, right?
Very different, yeah.
Let's say, for example, and I know it's different in every grade, but what are the percentage for?
It's really different in every single grade, so it's hard to, like we have a good percentage of local Malaysians, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, but it really varies in every grade level. And what we do when we're making class lists is we're really intentional in like making them very diverse. So we try to balance them as much as possible. Boys to girls, different nationalities. Those are like our two main. And then EAL students, we try to make sure that they are spread across the classes so that they're as balanced as possible.
Yeah, and also during admissions, we try to balance the amount of nationalities coming into the school. Because if you have, for example, 70% Canadian people in here, it's going to really swing it to a Canadian approach, right? Or if you have 70% Malaysians in the school, it's going to swing it to that host country. So the admissions tries to balance that out, and that's where we're having conversations. But then that's at the bigger level. But then when we sit together, we look at the classroom, and we're like, okay. And they do a very good job here at balancing not just nationalities, but then they look at personalities. So it's new for me, and it was very interesting because we've always done that, but they have 3 layers that do it, and that's pretty amazing. And knock on wood, everything's going smooth. All the kids are in a balanced class right now, and they're pretty happy with it.